The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us on Business Brief. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday he was pissed off at Russian President Vladimir Putin and will impose secondary tariffs on 25 to 50% on buyers of Russian oil if he feels Moscow is blocking his efforts to end the war in Ukraine. Trump told NBC News he was very angry after Putin last week criticized the credibility of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's leadership. His sharp comments about Putin reflect his growing frustration about the lack of movement on a ceasefire. Trump said he could impose the new trade measures within a month. There was no immediate reaction from Moscow. Putin on Friday suggested Ukraine could be placed under a form of temporary administration to allow for new elections that could push out Zelensky. Russia has called numerous Western sanctions and restrictions illegal and designed for the West to take economic advantage in its rivalry with Russia. Oil fluctuated as the market weighed on Donald Trump's mixed remarks on the threat of fresh penalties on Russian crude if his counterpart Vladimir Putin refuses a ceasefire with Ukraine. Brent's June contract slipped toward $72 a barrel after marginal gain at the open, while West Texas Intermediate was near $69. Bloomberg reports Trump told reporters on Air Force One that he doesn't think Putin will go back on his word, which appeared to take some of the edge off his criticism earlier Sunday. Europe wants to cooperate with the United States, but the EU is ready to respond as one if Washington leaves it no choice by imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum. Speaking at the opening of the Hanover Industrial Trade Fair, which has this year as Canada as its partner country, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said on Sunday, Europe must do everything to ensure that the free trade agreements the European Union concludes are more numerous and are concluded more quickly.
It is very clear to me that we can also draw on the practical experience we have gained with the free trade agreement with Canada, CETA, and Germany has ratified it. We hope that it will soon be ratified definitively by all European states, just as we must do everything we can to ensure that the free trade agreements that the European Union concludes are more numerous and that they are concluded more quickly. That is the right response at this time, but at the same time firmly prepared at every moment and in every hour to stand up for compromise and cooperation. That is why this remains the strategy we are pursuing together. Cooperation, clarity and strength are required here at the same time.
Trump said on Saturday he did not warn car industry executives against raising prices as tariffs on foreign-made autos come into force, telling NBC News he couldn't care less if they do. South Korea, China, and Japan held their first economic dialogue in 5 years on Sunday, seeking to facilitate regional trade as the three Asian export powers brace from U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. According to the statement released after the meeting, the country's three trade ministers agreed to closely cooperate for a comprehensive and high-level talks on the South Korea-Japan-China Free Trade Agreement deal to promote regional and global trade.
한국이 모두 참여한 RCEP의 이행을 강화해 나가면서 한중일 FTA 협상을 통해 3국 간 교역과 협력을 확장할 수 있는 틀을 만들어 나가야 합니다.
我々を取り巻く国際環境は
The global environment surrounding us is changing day by day, and instability is growing. It is precisely because of this situation that the creation of rules based on the WTO and economic partnership agreements, and the maintenance and strengthening of the rules-based international economic order are so important.
Currently, the global economy is under immense pressure due to increasing geopolitical rivalries, the spread of unilateralism and protectionism, leading to heightened instability and uncertainty. China, Japan, and South Korea share the important responsibility of promoting regional and even global prosperity.
Well, global stocks sold off for a fourth day ahead of President Donald Trump's unveiling of a fresh round of tariffs and mounting concerns about economic impact from a global trade war. From Sydney to Hong Kong, stocks dropped, with the Nikkei 225 sinking to the lowest level in more than 6 months, and Taiwan's benchmark on course for a so-called correction, or a drop from 10% from peak level. Equity index futures for the U.S. and Europe slid. Gold touched a fresh record high. We can show the graphics here. The uncertainty is prompting money managers to refrain from taking big positions or de-risking their portfolios as they remain wary about the announcement of the so-called reciprocal tariffs and the impact on the economy. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump set a deal with TikTok's Chinese parent ByteDance to sell the short video app used by 170 million Americans would be struck before a deadline on Saturday. Trump set the April 5 deadline in January for TikTok to find a non-Chinese buyer or face a U.S. ban on national security grounds due to have taken effect that month under a 2024 law. TikTok did not immediately comment. Reuters reported on Friday that private equity firm Blackstone is evaluating making a small minority investment in TikTok's U.S. operations.
There are a lot of potential buyers. There's tremendous interest in TikTok. I'd like to see TikTok remain alive.
Well, in response to the 25% tariffs on auto imports, Ferrari plans to raise prices of its U.S.-bound cars by up to 10% effective April 3rd. The move will ensure that the company maintains its 2025 financial targets while acknowledging potential minor impacts on profitability of as much as 50 basis point reduction in EBIT and EBITDA margins. Pre-April 2 orders, including certain models, will not be affected by the price hike. We have to pause for a few reminders. The biggest business stories from around the country and the market's closing data are up next. Keep it here on Business Brief, only on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Welcome back to Business Brief. An already staggering death toll still rising as Myanmar reels from Friday's powerful earthquake. Around 1,700 people are now confirmed dead, with at least 300 still missing. Hospitals are also overwhelmed as 3,400 were injured from the magnitude 7.7 quake. Myanmar's junta appealing for international aid. India, China, and Thailand among the first to respond, sending rescue teams and relief aid. Despite a pause in foreign funding, the United States has pledged $2 million in aid through humanitarian organizations based in Myanmar. The Philippine stock market is struggling to keep up with its ASEAN neighbors. Foreign investors are pulling back, and experts say high interest rates and a lack of incentives are making the country less competitive. CLSA Philippines country head Mitzi De Jos warns that the Philippines is falling behind as regional markets offer aggressive tax breaks and streamlined business processes. She says the country must act fast to retain investor confidence. ATR or ATRAM CIO Sandra Araujo, however, sees a possible turnaround. She believes a major rate cut from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas could reignite market momentum. Araujo expects a total of 100 basis points in rate cuts this year, a move she says could lower borrowing costs, boost expansion, and improve sentiment. But challenges remain. While the country's capital markets have enough liquidity, both Araujo and De Jos agree without stronger incentives and a more stable environment, investors may look elsewhere. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, highlighting the dangers of excessive short-term borrowing, advises Filipino businessmen to explore alternative financing options. In its annual financial stability report released on Thursday, the BSP noted that many corporates continue to face persistent funding mismatches where current liabilities exceed current assets. The Philippine Central Bank also pointed out that excessive reliance on short-term funding could pose refinancing risks, hindering long-term growth, especially with fluctuating interest rates. Aside from short-term borrowing dependence, the BSP also found key vulnerabilities in foreign currency exposure, with $43 billion in debt maturing this year, conglomerate bank interconnection, and high corporate debt, with the top 15 conglomerates holding 93% of total corporate debt. ICC Assistant to Counsel Cristina Conti hits back at Vice President Sara Duterte after the VP downplayed the number of deaths in her father's brutal drug war. Hannah T. reports.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte has asked his supporters not to interfere in his case before the International Criminal Court. That's according to Vice President Sara Duterte.
Hayaan natin ang kanyang mga abogado at ang korte mismo magdesisyon kung ano ang mangyayari o ano ang susundin kaparte ng proseso ng korte.
Supporters, she says, are free to express themselves, but should not comment on the merits of the case, especially when it comes to complainants who filed charges against the former president at the ICC. Duterte is facing charges of crimes against humanity in connection with his anti-drug campaign during his term. The ICC's investigation covers the period from 2011 to 2019, including alleged links to the Davao Death Squad and Tokhang operations. According to human rights groups, the death toll could be as high as 300,000. VP Sara then questioned the basis of the case, asking how killings could be deemed systematic if no names of victims were presented. It was on March 24 when the ICC prosecutor submitted 181 pieces of evidence as part of the pre-trial phase in Duterte's case. VP Sara said the evidence only mentioned 43 counts of murder and that it did not even reach 50. She then issued a sharp remark.
Where is the system there of killing thousands? No, you don't. No, sorry. Bobo yung abogado nila.
Attorney Cristina Conti of Bayan did not let that pass. She urged VP Sara to bring her arguments directly to the ICC and see if the tribunal will take her word. The 181 pieces of evidence are not names of victims. They consist of witness statements, documents, and other records that help establish patterns of killings. In crimes against humanity, it is not necessary to name every single victim. The focus is on the modus operandi, how the killings were carried out, who ordered them, and whether they followed a deliberate system or policy.
So now it's more than a question of numbers, because when we look at numbers, it feels as if you devalue the humans whose lives have been lost or dehumanized.
Hannah T. Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Among the Filipinos who have been showing support for Rodrigo Duterte in The Hague is Senator Robin Padilla. In an exclusive interview with our At the Forefront host, Attorney Karen Jimeno, Padilla described this trip as a learning opportunity. He also decried the need to bring the former president to justice in a foreign land.
Yan po ang opinion ng lahat ng Pinoy. Okay, hindi po yan opinion ng abogado, hindi po yan opinion ng tinatawag natin mga legal minds, okay? Opinion po yan ng bawat Pilipino. Tayo ay malayang bansa, tayo may kasarilan, tayo may kalayaan, tayo may gobyerno. Nakakatawa naman yun, ma'am. Sana lang maintindihan noong mga tinatawag natin intellectual kung ano yung point ng mga taong common man.
The senator also revealed that while he's in The Hague, Vice President Sara Duterte wants him to focus on campaigning for the midterm elections. He also says, should he win, this will be his last term of public office for the sake of his family.
Yung sacrifice na ginagawa niyo po.
Kaya ayoko na.
Hindi na, bakit po hindi na worth it?
Ayaw naman magbago ng Pilipino. Huwag tayo matakot sa bago. Yun lang po yung point ko. Ano ba tayo? Ayaw nyo ba magkaroon ng mga leader na hindi naman sikat? Pero magagaling. O, maging parliamentary tayo. Magkaroon tayo ng prime minister na pagkapalpak, pwede nating tanggalin bukas.
Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. Today, members of the community are gathering to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan. The video there on screen was taken in Carino Grandstand this morning. In a message, President Bongbong Marcos says the event is more than a celebration. It is also a testament to our desire for shared humanity, strengthening bonds of family and friendship. He also hopes this will serve as inspiration to extend our hands in service, uplift those in need, and help find joy in those who seek it. On to the markets now. Philippine shares recovered, defying the regional trend. The Min Index was the best performer in the region. The PSEI finishing the day higher by over 0.5% to 6180. Still, advancers outnumber decliners 104 to 99, with 46 unchanged. Property told the market, or rather value turnover reached 5.4 billion pesos. Holding firms and industrial sectors rallied more than 1.5% each. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 57 pesos and 29.5 centavos to the US dollar, up from Friday's close of 57.38. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us again on Monday tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on time.